Hi there. You're listening to Hypercast, an ADHD podcast. I'm Melissa, an ADHD coach and advocate.
Hi, I'm Brianna, an ADHD coach and soon-to-be therapist. We are here to explore all things ADHD, from unexpected challenges to unique strengths.
Join us as we share insights and strategies that empower you to live your best ADHD life.
Ready? Let's dive into today's episode.
Welcome to Hypercast.
Welcome to Hypercast.
Today we're going to talk about dealing with executive function in college. And we have some really wonderful guests with us today. We have Hannah Choi, who is an executive functioning coach. She has a podcast called Focus Forward. And with her today is one of her clients. We have a college student with us today. It's been a while since I was in college.
I'm still technically in college. I'm graduating in March.
With her second master's degree. But yeah, we thought it would be nice to have someone to actually talk about their real world experience dealing with executive function in college. We want to welcome both Hannah and her student, Caroline. Welcome to Hypercast today.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm so excited.
I've been looking forward to this since we scheduled it.
I want to ask both Hannah and Caroline, why do you think it's important to publicly talk about the importance of dealing with executive dysfunction in college?
At least for me, I think a lot of people don't realize, and I especially didn't realize, it's not just like academically putting executive function into my life. It's every day my daily routine. I've seen it like even cooking or getting ready. Things that would take people 20 or 30 minutes to do takes me like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that's really new. There was a problem. And it was like, my mom would be like, you've been up there for 2 hours. What are you doing? And it's because I just had so many in my head, I'm like, I have to do this, this, and this. And my head was so scattered. Nothing was organized or planned. And this was my freshman year. It's just crazy because not only is it affecting school, but it's also like your daily life too.
I am so glad to hear you say that, Caroline, because that is exactly the answer that I would have given. So often, I think adults, even though many of us went to college, forget about how important everything else is. It's not just about academics. You really can't be successful in college and have college give you everything it can give you unless you have executive functioning. Your executive functioning skills are functioning in all areas of your life.
For most of us, it's the first time away from home. So it's the first time we've had to manage an entire routine with laundry, cooking for ourselves, and maintaining a social life. Because the academic piece of it, it's a little bit more unstructured than high school for sure. But we have the skills, or at least the practice, to manage the academics. It all falls to pieces when everything else is disorganized. Everything just kind of snowballs.
Entering college, I felt like everything was a priority. The academics were a priority. The social aspect was a priority. And not having a strong enough foundation left me feeling lost.
My freshman year, going into it, I felt like, okay, obviously, I need to do really well in school. I had such a high pressure to myself, and I wanted to make my parents proud. All throughout high school, I was a good student. I took lower level classes, but I did so well in them, and I worked so hard. In high school, it's a very routine. You have classes from 8 to 2. When you go to college, you have to hold yourself accountable. And I think that is what I really struggle with freshman year is, how can I hold myself accountable? I just struggled with that routine and setting a routine for myself. And I felt like I was way too deep, in a hole almost. And I didn't know how to get myself out of it. And I was almost I just felt like I couldn't ask for help at that point, which was so hard because all throughout high school, I had so much on-hand help. I had so many people who supported me. And when I went to college, I felt like that all went out the window and I didn't know who to ask for help and what to do. I really just felt lost. And I think it wasn't until spring semester of college, after coming back from break, I talked to my parents and they were like, it's up to you what you want to do. Because I did have the hard conversation of, do I not go to college? Do I drop out of college? That hard conversation happened. And it was really hard for me because I saw my older sister in college and she was so smart. She was on the lacrosse team. She was doing everything. And I feel like she was doing everything so well. And that's part of where the pressure came from also. But I really asked myself the hard question, what do I want to do to change? Freshman year, fall semester, I did not do well. And I was so hard on myself. And it was a social aspect too. I was I have to find my people right away. And that did not happen right away. It took some time for that to happen. And I was just really struggling with balancing everything. And then I met with Hannah, and I think that truly has changed my life and has helped me so much. And it just makes me, I'm getting emotional, like so thankful for her.
Caroline, when you first told me your story about first semester freshman year, when you told me your story about what happened and how you got to where you were, talk about life-changing. Like, that was life-changing for me to know that I now have this honor of walking through all those challenges with you and moving towards finding confidence in yourself and finding what works for you and what doesn't work for you and being okay with that. And I was saying to Melissa when we first met, and she asked me why I like working with college students, and this is exactly why. I love witnessing that growth and that journey that you go through where you feel lost. And I don't want to witness that part, but I love to see that you have gotten out of that and you found where you are. And it hasn't been easy, right? But you have worked so hard and you've tried so many new things. You've been so open-minded. And that's why I wanted you to come today, because it's exactly what I would hope for someone. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
We want everyone to have the feeling that you're feeling right now, Caroline, where you have received that help. You've had the hard conversation, like, I don't know if I can continue, but you deserve to continue. You deserve to have all that success, all that growth, all that happiness. And by you volunteering to come on this podcast, hopefully someone else can find this and have that community, have that knowledge that they don't have to suffer alone, that there is help out there, and that it is hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it and say, oh, it'll be easy. Everything in your life will be fixed and it'll be all perfect. Like, no, there's work, but it's worth it.
It is. It totally is.
Your story, Caroline, and what you have done for yourself is so important for other people to hear, because it is so difficult to be vulnerable. And asking for help and admitting that you need help is one of the hardest things that we can do.
Especially at your age.
You're young and you're just starting out, and you really fought to get yourself where you were. Also, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but Caroline is an art major. And so art majors, there's a lot of like, oh, what do you do with an art major? There's a lot of like fighting that you had to do for yourself. You had to be really vulnerable and ask for help. I was thinking, if I could give one piece of advice to a college student, it is to find the strength within yourself to be vulnerable and to ask for help. Whatever that is, like help, I locked myself out of my room, or help, like I am failing my classes and I'm miserable. So,
I don't know if we've said this yet, but Caroline, you're a junior now, right?
Yes, I'm a junior. Yes.
Oh, so it is obvious she is succeeding right now. How does it feel? How does it feel to go from where you were to where you are now?
I don't even recognize that person. I know that sounds like crazy, but especially right now in my life, just because I feel like that's such a good point. I've never felt like that. Like, I feel like everything just feels like mentally, physically, I feel just great. I feel good. Just reflecting on that time in my life and how I was able to overcome it, and to be able to be proud of myself is so rewarding. I'm really tough on myself. That needed to change too, like that perspective of letting myself be proud of what I'm doing and who I am today has truly, really changed my perspective on life. Like, it was such a mindset switch, and it took a while to get there. It was not like one day I woke up, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be positive, happy every day. No, like it took some time to really understand like how I can reach that growth. Last year, it was every semester I think I got better. My spring semester, freshman year, I went from failing most of my classes, and then I was like, okay, my goal for myself is C's. Like, I just want to improve. And I got B's, and like, I think I got an A in one of my classes. It was an easy class, but I was really proud of myself.
Don't minimize it. Don't minimize it.
Don't minimize it. Yeah.
I was really proud of myself because it's like, okay, all I want to do is be better. And I kind of outdid that. I'm like, okay, I can do this. Like, that really helped me to understand, like, I can truly do this. I want to be a good student, and I want to go back to my high school strategies of like putting in the effort, knowing I can do it, like believing in myself, the confidence. That took a long time to get back to that, because I've always struggled with self-confidence and like in everything I do. I was such an insecure person. I think that showed like academically, and I finally was able to also overcome that.
So these incremental changes have slowly been building, and then you're able to look back and see how much you've grown, and you're really proud of where you are now and where you've come from and how you've succeeded along the way.
I was also able to measure Caroline's growth too from my end, working together to figure out like what would work the best for her for planning out her projects. So she does a lot of long-term projects. So, we had to figure out all that. Caroline didn't even know like how long things took. And so we spent so much time just kind of figuring out all the little things. And then it was really cool on my end because, this idea of like, I do, we do, you do. And so like I would show her something and then we would do it together. And then she'd be like, I do this now. This is what I do now. and then we would go from meeting weekly for a while. We met weekly and then go down to 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And now we're at once a month. And it's been really, really, really cool to measure it with like, it's not really data because I didn't write it down or anything, but just like my own observations like that. And the other way that I've been able to like measure your growth is how you look. Like every time we meet, you just have looked more and more confident and more and more,
thank you.
I don't know, just more confident.
But that's the goal, right?
And happier. Yeah.
To work yourself out of a job to help
Yes.
Caroline develop the skills so she can do this on her own, right? Because that's what college is. It's setting yourself up for success in your future. So both of you are doing great. Caroline, you're doing great because you're succeeding. And Hannah, you're doing great because you're working yourself out of a job.
I have a question for both Caroline and Brianna. And that's about how it's about sustaining, because Brianna's actually working her second master's degree, and we've got someone who's working on their bachelor's degree. So how do you sustain as a college student? How do you sustain and keep your head above water? Because I know when you have executive functioning issues, sometimes you're just treading water.
I think part of it is, and Hannah knows this, I am a huge list maker. For me, I have to do it, like write it out on paper. Like I bought a cute little planner. That has been so helpful for me. It sounds silly, but it truly has been. And I did not do any of that freshman year. Making lists and like writing it out and literally just writing little checkbox. And when I do it and checking it off, it's so like rewarding.
Not at all.
Okay, I got that done. I feel good. Like doing that little check, I'm like, I feel so like I accomplished something. I did. It sounds small, but I feel like the small things are kind of what really matter. They really add up. And also Hannah does a great job of, she'll send me little texts, like holding me accountable. And I really appreciate those. And my mom does the same thing. I'll have like little check-ins.
You have an accountability buddy.
Exactly. And like I said, like holding myself accountable. Yes, that's important too. But it's also so nice to have other people to check in.
The other thing that Caroline does that helps her be successful is she is so good at taking care of herself. She cooks for herself and goes grocery shopping every week. And she like checks out new recipes, and she also exercises a lot, and she spends a lot of time with friends, and she sleeps well. And those things, if you have that foundation set and it has become part of your routine, and you've really seen the benefits of doing all those things, it makes it easier to swim and not even tread. You're actually like moving forward. If you don't have that solid, healthy foundation, then your brain is not as happy, and so your executive function skills are not going to be as functioning. And Caroline is really good at prioritizing that, you have become very good at prioritizing that.
Thank you.
And I think one of the reasons why you continue to prioritize is because you see and you reflect on how much things are better when you do those things.
Freshman year, I was in a little tiny dorm. It was literally called the shoeboxes. Like that was the name of the dorms because it was in like the size of a shoebox.
Yes. It was so small.
I didn't have a kitchen. I was ordering takeout, and like my mom was like, well, find meals you can microwave. There was the dining hall. Arguably the dining hall was worse.
Oh gosh.
That was a huge thing. When I was a sophomore, I lived with my sorority friends, and we had a kitchen, and literally just having a kitchen like changed my lifestyle so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I can make my own meals. I'm an art major and I love to create. So I think cooking and baking, I'll find myself when I'm stressed or overwhelmed. I cook or I bake like a new recipe.
You telling that story made me reflect back. We had fresh fruit Fridays at my school. And if you didn't get to meal hall before 8 a.m., which not going to happen for me, then there was no more fresh fruit. So I completely understand the whole like trying to eat healthily and like, because I know that I need that for my body and my brain to function. And I was just like, I also was living in a shoebox with a microwave and a mini fridge and no ability to feed myself. And I was also taking a whole bunch of science classes. So I had classes all morning, labs all afternoon, and I couldn't get to meal hall. And so they were so kind to us, and they had us little packed lunches with a juice box for a toddler and a like sandwich on white bread that mostly just had cheese or processed ham. And I was like, yeah, this is going to sustain me until like 8 p.m. at night. Thanks.
Another thing that Caroline has mentioned a few times and that I think is really important for success in college is having a champion, whoever that champion is. And so Caroline's mom is amazing. I haven't met her, but I just love all the, everything you've told me about her. And so, if it may not be your mom, maybe it's your RA or maybe it's your your best friend or whatever.
I mean, my mom,
having a champion.
Not to interrupt, but like she is my biggest supporter, and she has gone through more than anyone else I know, physically and mentally. And my mom had breast cancer 3.5 years ago, and that is when my perspective on life changed, because I saw this woman who my mom more than me like. She would get up and run every day. She'd go to CrossFit. She would do everything. And she ate like kale salads every day for lunch. She was the healthiest person I knew. And her getting cancer, I couldn't understand that. Like, I just was like, how on earth, I couldn't connect the dots to that. She has been my biggest role model. And I know she will always, always support me. And she just countless times has shown that throughout being at college. And I think it's so important to have someone to look up to. And I really do appreciate it. And I hope she watches this. So hi, Mom.
I have to make sure to keep that one in.
No, Hannah, I agree with you that having a champion, and Caroline, that's a beautiful story about your mom. I can somewhat relate. My mother didn't have breast cancer, but she was also my supporter and got me everything I needed. My university had, I think you mentioned this as well, like a student center, and I gave them my IEP, my learning plan, and they gave me extra time on tests. They gave me a separate space to study, a separate room to take my exams in, so I didn't have to go to the gym with all the other people making all the millions of noises that were super distracting. And there were people who had more needs than I did, and they got help with like spelling, and they had tutors available, which I sometimes took advantage of. They even had an organizational tutor available to help you with your scheduling and your life planning.
Whoa.
I know. So I specifically chose this school because I knew I needed that support.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because something that I wanted to make sure we talked about today was, if you're listening to this and you're the parent of a child who's going to go off to college, or you are a student going off to college soon, and you have an IEP or a 504 currently, I really, really, really recommend getting connected with the accommodations office at whatever school you're thinking about going to. And if you are not sure which school to go to, I really, really recommend visiting the office, or at least having a call with them, because every school is going to have a different level of accommodations that they provide. So like legally, the ADA requires that they provide like a minimum amount, this certain amount, but some schools do go above and beyond. Like Brianna, it sounds like yours was amazing. So that's something to really consider. If you have used accommodations throughout your K through 12 years, and you think you might, like you're thinking maybe not, but you might use them in college, just absolutely get connected. Submit your paperwork. Even if you never even use it, your 4 years there could be that one moment where you're like, oh, I need this. And at least then they have your paperwork. And my other piece of advice for that is, once you get connected with them, don't wait until midterms to ask for extended time. Sign up for it at the beginning of the semester. I cannot impress that upon you enough. Do not wait. Because you know who else is going to be in there signing up for stuff? All the other stressed out people that waited. And that is not fun.
Before we recorded this, we recorded an episode on assessments, and we were talking about getting accommodation after you get an assessment. So thank you for expanding on on what we just talked about there.
Can I expand more on that? Your original question was, how do you sustain that? So I specifically chose the school that I went to based on their support services because I knew that I would need them. I signed up for them right away. I was always the first person to hand in my little form. And the way that it worked is you had to go to your teacher and you're like, and that's hard and stressful, right? You have to admit that there's something wrong with you, but it's so they knew you personally, so they could always watch out for you and have a little bit more of that high school support of like, hey, I noticed you didn't hand in your paper. Like, do you need more time? Or, hey, I know your face. So what are you doing here? It's exam day. Go over to the student center because that's where your exam is. I've already sent it there. So there was a lot of support that the school provided. And then to answer the question more fully is like, then I went on to do master's degrees and I didn't have that same support. And so I know the difference of I tried so hard to get support. I submitted all the forms and they were just not accommodating at all. But because I had gone to this place where they had taught me how to do the paperwork, where they had taught me how to be organized, where I had learned all of these skills, I now had the ability to do it for myself. As I went through this process, I went to a place that supported me in learning and growth. Then I had the ability to maintain it on my own. And now that I'm, just about to graduate from my second master's degree, you can see that it's working because I am succeeding. I have the skills because I spent the time developing them and I had the help to develop them.
That foundation is so important.
Carolyn, there's, if you continue to do your education after this, or even if you just go into the workforce, the skills that you're developing now are going to be so beneficial for you.
That's what's so cool about executive function skills, that they're applicable to like every area of our life. Oh,
yeah. When I submitted my IEP to them and they were great. They got back to me right away. It was different. They told me that like all my teachers would be like emailed, like updated about the IEP. And my mom was like, I would go up to them and tell them. So I did do that. And I was so scared because I hadn't done that. Like high school, like same thing. Like they would have to print it out paper. And it was more like, I was like, oh, they know. Like when I would have tests, they're like, oh, go to the IP center. I'm like, okay, great. In college, you have to tell them that and you have to advocate for yourself. Yeah. And I remember there was one teacher and I told her and I was like, yeah. And she kind of almost didn't like understand. She's like, okay, like, but if we have like an exam, like I can't like push that date for you. I was like, okay, but like that's what I'm asking for. And like just talking her through it and being like, I mean, it's literally insane not to argue with the teacher, but it's so helpful to like talk to them in person because some of them, I don't know why professors here don't understand like exactly how important that is for students to have that extra time if they need it. So totally.
And that's something that the accommodations office can help you with. So if you have a professor that doesn't understand or is not receiving the message clear enough or not providing the accommodation that you legally need to get, then the accommodations office can support you advocating for yourself, for you as well.
And I want to say that is so brave because one, your mother truly is a champion and giving you really good advice and saying, go talk to them. Yep. Because so often things that an email can't explain or doesn't get across can be dealt with just by having that conversation. But you're brave enough to do that. Brianna was saying these skills that you're cultivating now, you're going to be able to take into the real world when you go into the workforce. And that's going to be, it's going to be so helpful for you.
Something that I ask all of, I can't force anybody to do anything, but something that I ask all of my college students to do is introduce themselves to their professors within the first 2 weeks of school. And part of it is so that they get to know their professor, but really the real secret reason is to build self-advocacy skills because that's a really safe place to do it, right?
Yep.
I mean, some professors are jerks. But for the most part, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're saying hi to me? Amazing.
Yeah. That's why I loved that it was built into my system. Like I had to physically take them the form and they've like since moved to an email system. And I was like, no, bring that back. Like just because I had to do it to go get the accommodations. And it was so helpful to just have a name to a face. And then it made it so much easier for me to go ask, like if I needed help or if I didn't understand something, I already had a connection with them. So it was so much easier to go to their office hours or ask for help later. Because I knew them.
100%. I fully agree with that. Being comfortable with like, if I'm struggling with something, going up to them and asking them and getting that help and feeling like they know me and I know them. And that's
before you're stressed and before you're failing. Like having that ability to go do that before eliminates a whole bunch of problems.
And your mom was so right about making sure, like, getting retested, getting the accommodation in place, because when you're at your best, you may not need it or may need only a little bit, but you need a plan for it when you were at your worst. And that's the important thing.
So true.
Yeah.
Self-advocacy is such an important skill to learn. I was thinking you had asked before we met, what are some good skills that students need to, or things they need to do before they go to college, or skills they need to learn. And I think that self-advocacy piece is so huge. And so, there's so many fairly easy ways to do that before you go off to college, like start making your own doctor's appointments and or if you're going to get takeout, you call and you order the takeout. I make my daughter call, when she has to, do something. And she just told me yesterday that her birthday was yesterday. She just turned 16 and she's having a party tomorrow. Yeah. She's having a party tomorrow. And she said she called the restaurant to find out about, how many servings were in each portion of pasta that we're going to get. And I was like, self-advocacy skills, in the real world. And she did it, nobody told her to do it. She did it, and she could do it because she had practiced so many times with me, like sitting next to her, like, this is what you say, And so building up that self-advocacy. So parents, if you're listening, I really encourage you to step back a little bit and really help your kids figure out how to do those things on their own. And students, it is hard, and it does feel a little bit scary and uncomfortable, but I promise you that discomfort that you feel now while you're practicing these things in this like relatively safe environment is going to pay off in spades over time, and it'll feel so much better.
Yeah. Another good one is booking your own flights. Like if you are away from school, booking your own flights to and from, obviously using parents' credit card if that's what they're allowing. Because I remember I am still a student and it is very expensive to pay tuition and all that. But booking your own flights and like choosing your own seat and making all those decisions and trying to find the best price, like that's so useful, especially if you want to go traveling after university.
Skills that build.
Yeah, another life skill that I was going to say is please learn how to do your own laundry.
Oh my gosh.
I have so many stories. There was a kid at my university who put his soccer cleats in the washing machine.
What?
With his clothes.
With his clothes.
With his
Oh,
clothes.
gross.
So they were completely covered in mud, put everything in the washing machine, and it broke the washing machine, and he didn't understand what he had done wrong. He's like, I needed to clean my cleats. And I was like,
I had a fellow coach tell me that a student she knew, a freshman in college, asked her if he was supposed to touch the clothes when he moved them from the washer to the dryer. We were like, no, you use the laundry tongs. Get the laundry tongs.
you just teleport them with your mind.
Like, buddy, how are you going to get them from the washer to the dryer? So parents, please, it's one less task for you. Have your kids do their own laundry.
Another funny story. There was someone who was they were like so good. They're like, oh, I'm cleaning my dorm room. Don't worry about it. They were using a Swiffer without the cleaning head on it. They were just pushing around a stick, and they thought that was cleaning the floor.
Oh my God.
Learning these skills is so important, and it sets you up for success for the rest of your college degree. And then you don't have to live with dust bunnies.
Caroline, you only had like a microwave and a refrigerator. What kind of meal can you put together? Have like 3 scenarios and try to keep those things on hand. So maybe you don't have to solely rely on Fresh Fruit Friday.
I have to say, when I think about all of the students that I've worked with, the most successful students are the ones that cook for themselves.
Interesting.
And I think it's because there's so many executive function skills that are tied up in cooking.
So many.
Yeah, so many, right? And so I think it's indicative of the fact that they have figured out a lot of that thing. If they can manage all the steps of cooking for themselves, then they're likely going to do pretty well in school.
That doesn't mean that it has to be a 5-course meal.
Yeah.
No, God, no. One of my clients, he cooks for himself, and all last year he's worked his way through like a 2-pound bag of peas. He said he just would add peas to every meal, and he loves peas. He's like, I'm getting my vegetables I'm getting my green things. And so by the end, he finished that bag of peas. It's like a massive Costco bag of peas.
That's delightful.
That's funny.
I will say from an ADHD perspective, if you are cooking for yourself, then you can add things like the protein that your brain needs, because executive functioning requires protein because dopamine requires protein. So like that kind of thing, getting your fruits and vegetables in. I know that in college, like that's not your top priority, right? But it actually helps your brain function so much better, and you're able to do all of the things that you would otherwise struggle with if you're not getting proper nutrition. And like my first year of university, when I had those Fresh Fruit Fridays, like I was like, am I going to get scurvy? Like I am actually feeling sick like most days because I just wasn't getting the proper nutrition. And then I moved out of the dorm and started cooking for myself. And my next 3 years were much better.
So I also wanted to state from an ADHD perspective, even as an adult, probably 3 times this week, sometimes I will forget that I'm supposed to eat something at a certain time. I'll grab a plate and then I try to put some sort of protein, some sort of fruit or veg, some sort of like decent starch or rice or something. And I'll get like frozen varieties of those or something that's easy to make. That way it takes me less than 10 minutes to put something on a plate and put it in my body. But just try to like think of the necessary components of a meal. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it on the plate and get it inside of your body.
This is why girl dinner is the peak ADHD food. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Karen.
Yes, I do.
For the adults out there, it's a charcuterie board, but for us, it's girl dinner. I am still a child at heart, and I am okay with that. Pay my own bills and everything, but I refuse to accept it.
Don't worry. I'm in my mid-40s. I still don't accept it. So.
Me neither. But it's so true. And I think a big, something that can be very helpful is because it can feel like I feel like we minimize the value of a good night's sleep and the value of good food because you don't usually see the results right away, you know? And so I think a good daily reflection session on like, how am I doing today? You know, that's what we always do that in our coaching sessions. Like, how are things going? Like, how are you feeling? I always ask, you know, how's your sleep? How's your nutrition? How's your exercise or your movement? And how's your your socializing going? Because you have to make it a habit to check in on yourself with that kind of stuff.
That check-in is so critical for ADHD because like we often forget to pee. That's just a part of like our brain. Like, oh, I haven't eaten or drink water in like 8 hours and I really have to pee, that kind of thing. But like executive functioning skills as well. Like if you're not checking in with your body, how can you know that your systems are working?
Yeah.
And I think Caroline, I feel like that's something that you have gotten very good at is, you know, really like paying attention to how you feel. But I feel like that's something that I mean, if you look at it from an executive function brain development perspective, metacognition, you know, that self-awareness skill is, you know, as Melissa knows, it's like it's not one of the first ones to put. You know, we don't really get good at that until we're older. And then even into adulthood, it still takes so much work.
Caroline and then Hannah, what would be your parting words?
I think, first of all, I love talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry if I ramble. That's just how I am.
We love that here.
I would say really, truly remember to celebrate the little wins. Like if you had a bad day, like we've all had those. I mean, like, oh my gosh, like my day is thrown off. I missed my class. I'm freaking out. Like take a deep breath and like regroup. And then throughout the day, like if I like, okay, like I'm going to go on like a 30-minute walk or I'm going to work on this project that's due in 2 weeks, but I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to start doing it now. Celebrate those little things and be proud of where you are at today and look at the bigger picture. Because I think for so long, I struggled to look at the big picture. And I was like, this little thing that I'm so worried and stressed out about, is it going to affect me in like 5 years? No.
Yeah, I agree with Caroline. Definitely look for those little wins. And I don't know, just, I guess find a balance between being really compassionate with yourself and also taking risks. You know, push yourself a little bit and also be compassionate and have some empathy for you and also the people in your life. And, you know, everybody, I believe that everybody is doing the best they can with what they have in that moment. And if you feel like you could do better, then ask for help and try to get more to help yourself in that moment. But always with compassion, and also just spend time with your friends and get enough sleep and eat well and move your body, whatever that looks like.
So today we had a wonderful conversation with two wonderful women about how to thrive in college. So we got some incredible specific tips about the eating and the sleeping and the moving your body and the celebrating yourself and the not beating yourself up. Those are incredible tips to move forward. But we also got to talk about some of the personal stories of what success looks like, how hard it is, and hopefully some motivation to keep going, because there is a community of people around you, right? You're not alone in this. Reach out for help when you need it. That's probably my biggest tip, is reach out for help. And there's no shame in asking for help. That's what community is for. Hopefully through this episode, we have inspired you to give it your all, to thrive in college, to maybe you come away with some tips and tricks.
Hannah, where can we find you?
Yeah, sure. So my podcast is called Focus Forward, an executive function podcast. We're on all the platforms out there. And then I also do a community education webinars for Beyond Booksmart. So you can find more about what we're doing over there at beyondbooksmart.com. We have tons and tons and tons of free resources. And then I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me under Hannah Choi.
Great. And Caroline, did you have an IG handle?
My Instagram is CarolineCal22. CarolineCal and then 22. My birthday.
Great. And if you need any further resources to help you with your ADHD, I'm an ADHD coach, and you can find me at likemindcoaching.com.
I am also an ADHD coach and intern therapist, and you can find me at understandingadhd.ca.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Hypercast.
If you've enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, be sure to rate and subscribe. And check out the show notes for links to our social media and websites.
Whether you're seeking practical tips, heartfelt stories, or just a sense of community, Hypercast is here for you.
Remember, you're not alone in your ADHD journey. Together, we can navigate the highs and lows with courage and compassion.
So until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing your unique neurodiversity.
Catch you on the next episode of Hypercast.